Okay, hi, this is Angie, Power Disney, with Dr. Jim Fetzer from America and Luke McKee in exile from his home country of Australia. And I'm mostly going to listen. This was originally going to be, can I say this, like a kill switch, a safe recording of facts in case anything happens, because somebody close to Luke's research died yesterday. And sadly, this still happens, although not as commonly as it used to be. I'm going to ask Dr. Fetzer to just give us a bit of background on who he is and his record, because he's been on the scene a lot longer than I have. So can I just
Jim has
ask
stood by me throughout the years.
Yeah.
When it's the only person I've had a strong relationship with since I've been in exile who's been doing interviews with me, and I have great respect for Jim.
Okay. Can I ask you, Jim, to introduce yourself to
Well, Angie, I'm a former Marine Corps officer, retired university professor. I've done a massive amount of research on theoretical foundations of scientific knowledge, computer science, artificial intelligence, cognitive science, evolution, and mentality, 24 plus books. And I've also become engaged in collaborative research on the most complex and politically controversial events of our time: JFK, 9/11, Wellstone, Sandy Hook, the Boston bombing, Orlando, Dallas, Charlottesville, Parkland, even the moon landing. Now, Luke reached out to me, and I have been utterly fascinated and impressed, not only by the breadth and depth of his knowledge, but by his unwavering courage in speaking out about these matters that are of the utmost importance, not only to the people of New Zealand and Australia specifically, but to the world's population generally, because he's exposing a mode of corruption that appears to be pervasive worldwide among the elites. Yes. Pedophilia. Yeah. Well, Joaquin Hagopian has now a 5-volume series about this same problem, and where I believe Luke's work and Joaquin's are highly complementary.
Okay, and I'll just give you a brief potted background of my own. Can I call you Jim, or do you want me to call you Dr. Fetzer?
Oh, please, yes, Jim, yes.
Okay, I'll give you a brief. So I am from documented 5 generations of abuse, so an intergenerational family abusive, which turned out on research to be bloodliners. Like, I was married to a Disney and divorced, and the power that I was born to as a child turned out to be Le Puer, another lost bloodline. So the bloodline thing is in there. But my father joined the British Royal Air Force for 25 years, and my research shows that both my mother and myself and my 4 siblings were all subjected to projects, including, I spent most of the first 5 years of my life in military hospitals. So it included drugging for memory wiping experiments, included immobilization from the neck down, included gifted child research. It was just Project Paperclip kind of stuff. And I started to really go deep with this around 2003. And the more I disclosed my fractured memories, the more research backed it up. And,
That's what happened with me in the last 48 hours.
Yeah.
And just quickly, can I share my screen for less than 1 minute to make the audience want to stay for this video, because it's going to be just give a quick teaser in less than 1 minute of how big this show is going to be.
Okay.
So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, that's just a tab I have open showing that the guy in the OTO I talked about earlier, who's on camera saying they drink blood and force kids into abuse, runs the whole show. But we're not talking about that today. All those tabs aren't relating to today. This is a biography of the Australian former Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, that went to my high school, Sydney Grammar. We will see in this documentary that a man, after this book was published, the pedophile Adrian Cooper, which is linked to the intelligence services we'll be talking about, is in this book. He was convicted in March 2013. This book was published in October, and he's talking about Malcolm Turnbull sharing a tent with him, and they never forgot to remove it from the book. Oops.
Yeah.
And for your English listeners, this is
I'm
Adrian.
Irish. I'm Irish.
Okay, English, Irish, UK. Well, not,
No,
sorry,
I'm
Ireland.
not
Okay,
I
know. You got out of it. You got out of Dodge. Okay. Adrian Cooper was at St. Edward's, Oxford, in England. The same Adrian Cooper, because Adrian Cooper's a mountain climber. That's how he's friends with ASIO agent Andrew Locke. We're going to dive into all the details later. But he talks, this Adrian Cooper goes mountaineering in the Himalayas. So it's the same guy, then back to Sydney Grammar School. So it's 100% confirmed. This pedophile operated in England and did all the outdoors events with English boys too. It's a global network, and the pedophiles travel. Here's the article, the Chronicle St. Edward's School. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Just had to put that hook in there to let the audience know that this is going to be a powerful broadcast, and we can slow it down a bit and go back to
and
I'll stop my screen share.
I wanted to finish, because I know we are only the microcosm, but all I wanted to finish on is that when one of the worst things that ever got done was when, I'll give you one example of recovering a fractured memory of being, and trigger warning, sorry, but I was human hunted, and I have 2 memories of that. And I took a snapshot with my brain because one of the people that hunted and abused me was in full army general uniform. And as a child, I was only 8, I thought, oh, we're Air Force. Why is there an army man here? And then decades later, another survivor, Esther Baker, had accused this lord of the British Empire, Lord Bramall, and they showed historical photographs of him in the paper as he was being investigated. And one of the photographs, it absolutely fitted my photographic memory that I had just put away. But I remember at the time, 8 years old, having been drugged, hunted, abused, and come round. I remember thinking, why is he here? He's army. And it was this. So the most devastating thing for survivors like myself and Luke is the false memory syndrome. So when they say, because you only had fractured memories, or you only fully clarified your memories 30, 40 years later, oh, that's a false memory. Somebody must have implanted that.
Well, in my case, I'm going to disprove that because I had I was prompted. I was having a conversation with Tom Cahill, and I said, something to me happened at Sydney Grammar, and I was abused. And I described the camping trip first. And I Googled Sydney Grammar School pedophile, and up came Adrian Cooper's name, but I hadn't seen his name. So then on the chat, I described what he looked like and his mannerisms and how he wore his socks up to his ankles and didn't want the students to call him Mr. Cooper because I was a boy just like you at Sydney Grammar once. And call me Adrian Cooper. He, unlike all the other special clubs and extracurricular activities at Grammar, only he got to take over a maths class for a whole period to pitch his Sydney Grammar School Endeavour Club in the, I think it was in 1K at the time at Sydney Grammar, in the basement of the old sandstone building you always see for it. Sydney Grammar School is the most elite educational institution in Australia. Its cadets predate the Australian military. It's the sandstone building that I was in was the first educational institutional building in Australia. It's on College Street. It's on College Street because it was the first college building ever built in Australia. And I got in on a half scholarship. I didn't go with all the blue silver spooners. And I went with the students were all obsessed with BB guns and sex and Skeggs girls and anime, filthy, anime cartoons. I never really connected with a lot of the other Sydney Grammar School students when I was there. But this Adrian Cooper character, here's the incredible thing. He was a convicted pedophile since 1982 and should have not been allowed in the school.
Yeah.
And he was involved with a police false flag operation to justify funding for the police rescue unit. You're going to see it from his own admissions.
Okay.
He lost groups of children in the bush 3 times, with frantic parents calling up saying, some man's got my son. And that part of the police computerized operational policing system, it started in 94, but the central names index database listing all pedophiles was operable at this time. It is unbelievable to believe that they did not know he was a pedophile. It is impossible to believe.
I just want
we're talking 1990, 1993. They had police, and 1992, they had police mainframes, IBM OS 390s, costing the taxpayer lots and lots of money for expensive IBM mainframe equipment. And to think that they didn't use it when this gay pedophile, I can't call him, this gay man who rapes kids, was lost in the bush with a bunch of children.
Okay,
it is incredible.
Hold you a second, because I realise we slightly introduced Dr. Fetzer, and I really want to know more. But I also want to, again, introduce Luke and say he's one of the top researchers. He's in exile for his work. He's had death attempts on him. He risks everything. You've had death attempts.
In China, that was scary. Okay. That was very scary.
But I just want to link it into how, I know you said Dr. Fetzer was one of the only people that listened to you when you were running for your life. So I just want to ask Jim, I know you've been an expert with like the fake landing on the moon and all the false flags and 9/11, and I actually interviewed somebody about, this is just an aside, who was subjected to psychiatric experiments similar to my sisters and I, and he was transported in an aeroplane to Dallas to be one of multiple shooters of JFK from the bookshop. T. Casey Brennan is his name, and he's named in a book as a possible suspect. And he said we were drugged, we were placed, we had sacks over our head as we were brought in from this aeroplane, and then we were told to aim and shoot, and none of us would ever know if we were the one that landed the bullet. It was an incredible interview. And so I respect your work, but I'm just asking you, how familiar are you with this thing in the Five Eyes countries of pedophiles being deliberately placed in schools and scouts and government, ministers for children, sad to say, ministers for gay affairs? How familiar are you with that in America, Jim?
Well, I would defer to both you, Angie, and Luke on that area of research, which is not my expertise, though I'm very supportive of what Luke has been unearthing. And I have also been encouraging Joaquin in his expositions. Indeed, in his books, he acknowledges that it was my encouragement that led him to publish the 5 volumes. So I'm very glad for that, because this seems to me to be a major problem. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, and Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby are merely the tip of the iceberg, where the Epstein relations are with powerful political figures who were compromised by being videotaped and audio taped and compromising situations with children, some of which I believe were actually quite horrific and involved child sacrifice and drinking the blood. This adrenochrome seems to be a popular item among aging women of political connection, and I include specifically Hillary Clinton and Huma Abedin and Nancy Pelosi, and that, where I've done a study on Pizzagate that's available on my blog.
Good. And for devil's advocate for everyone here, I have the leaked training videos from the OTO where they admit their doctrine of human blood drinking. tinyurl.com/OTOPEDOS. Everyone in the videos has been identified, and I believe the phrase, if you search hashtag spirit cooking, hashtag cakes of light, at the time the WikiLeaks revelations were coming out from John Podesta's emails, OTO, Auto Templi Orientis pedophiles were claiming credit. Oh, spirit cooking is us. We're getting publicity. You know, because in the flood of thousands of tweets about spirit cooking, they were adding their own there, and you can still see that evidence now. In the training videos, one of the training videos from David Shriven, aka Freitas Siberius X, the video is entitled Cakes of Blood, Light and AIDS. They said the blood pool is closed due to the AIDS virus. We have to cook the blood into a cake of light with semen, and you can also use menstrual blood or blood of a child or blood of an enemy. And those are the words of Aleister Crowley. So what's worse than getting members of the cult being pedophiles is proving they have a published doctrine of being pedophiles, and the government is jailing people who disrespect them without trial. All through the news in Australia, all last month, there's this whole religious discrimination bill. It's even on Al Jazeera's main bloody channel talking about Australia's, laws to protect religious freedom and force gays into Catholic schools. No one ever talked about who's successfully used religious vilification blasphemy laws in Australia. Pretty much the only people are the Auto Templi Orientis religion of blood drinking, child orgies, and child sacrifice in their own books. I'm not going to rehash all the old news about that, but I was going to use the damning content I'm going to expose later in this issue leave this video unlisted. And if Sydney Grammar does not play ball and cooperate with me as regarding my abuse allegations, this will destroy the oldest education institution in Australia. Parents will know they're sending their kids to a school that deliberately allows known pedophiles that are friends with police and intelligence services. I left Sydney Grammar in my third form because I wasn't allowed to do design and technology because I got second in the school in speech day honours in that elite school. But a kid who failed all his subjects, who brought rotting fruit in his bag every day, who went to the prep schools, there was an elite minority group. His name was Matthew Loftus. He failed DNT, but because he was gay, just like the gay teacher, he took my spot.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I don't want to make this about any specific group, although I know that, I just want to keep this, that I can put it on YouTube and get it to the maximum number of people. So it's very clear, let me finish, Luke. It's very clear that there are a propensity of people in the LGBT community lobbying and doing lawfare, which is a cover-up for trying to normalize paedophilia. I get it, I see it, and I agree with you. It's also clear in the Catholic Church, it's also clear in every people group. You can go to the top and you will find horrendous corruption and child raping. And of course, it mostly links in our time to Aleister Crowley. I want to ask as well, Jim, how have the FBI not been held accountable? Where is Hunter Biden's laptop? Where is even Huma Abedin's husband's laptop?
Where's Terry Bean, Hunter Biden's mate, with 5 lawyers disbarred on the case, never had a trial in 10 years?
And how can the FBI and the CIA and MI6 and all the intelligence agencies, how can they bury this, what happened? And then all these New York police, supposedly committed suicide after. How can we be having the Ukraine and Russia situation and forgetting that Joe Biden said, I'm not releasing this $1 billion guarantee and my plane leaves in 6 hours unless you stop investigating my son and fire that investigator. Like, what can we do? I'm asking you, Jim from America, Luke from Australia, myself from Ireland, with eyes dreaming. How can we hold these people to account?
Well, Angie, that's such a serious question. Many Americans are outraged that James Comey held back the Anthony Weiner laptop that had all these revelations about Hillary Clinton and would have destroyed her campaign outright, clearly on political grounds. And then Christopher Wray, his successor as director, did the same for Hunter Biden's laptop, which had equally incriminating stuff. I mean, it's ghastly what you find there. Even his cavorting with two nubile young women who appear very strongly to resemble the daughters of Barack Obama and Michelle, except that since Michelle is a man with breast implants and a huge shaving bill, they cannot be the biological offspring, and others have found their parents of former physician to Michelle, where the older girl looks just like her father, the younger just like her mother. I mean, I believe this is one of the reasons why they want to promote transsexualism, sexual ambiguity, gay, lesbian, binary non-denial. I mean, it's absurd to deny that there are two sexes, but it's because they are perverted themselves in positions of power, and to make themselves feel more normal, they want to bring the rest of the culture along with them. Angie, this is about as disgusting as it gets.
Yeah, Joan River died one day after she talked about Michael Obama, and just after I exposed Adrian Cooper to intelligence services as a potential witness against one of their ASIO officers, boom, dead, bang. That's why I'm making this video.
It was not the following day. It was either 2 months or 2 weeks or a month to the day, however, of after they revealing that, where she was being very casual about it, you know, because a reporter was asking her, now that we have our first black president, when will we have our first gay president? She said, well, you know, we already have that with Obama. And of course, Michelle's a tranny, we all know. And then she would die shortly thereafter of a routine endoscopy, during which people simply do not die.
Yeah.
So these are all very suspicious. And Luke, you're completely in the right to be concerned about your own well-being in the wake of developments like these.
Yeah,
well, let's dive into the evidence.
Who died yesterday? Bring us up to speed. I'm sorry to jump all over the place.
Well, let me share my screen. Let's start going into the evidence here, okay? You've got you guys in the top corner so I can see your facial expressions. I'll put you up at the very top, just there, okay. Now, so who died yesterday? Let me just find the tab. Okay, there you go.
Don't show people's email addresses.
No, it's all right. Now here is this was not in the Google search results 48 hours ago, as far as I'm concerned. I got it from a query I ran through all possible options, okay, 48 hours ago, and now it just appeared. And Adrian Cooper is going to have his chapel funeral in 3 days from now. To start with, we need to go to the mainstream news about Adrian Cooper, then we'll dive into my email, because it's always good to start with the mainstream news. So we'll just find where that is. Okay, give me a sec, I'm switching tabs. That's me doing an FOI. This guy worked with the National Park Service. He was advertised, and his walks of little boys was advertised in the New South Wales Teacher Federation. He was constantly going out with boys every single weekend, even after retiring. And let's read that. When we read the mainstream news, he got removed. He allegedly got Order of Australia, but his name he's been removed from the database for that.
Are we looking at the right slide, Luke? I mean,
here we go. There's two stories. This is the pedestrian TV. This is the pedestrian TV headline. Ex-grammar teacher charged for indecent act whilst boys were showering in 2015 in March, the beginning of March. But this article isn't the best article. There's a more detailed one. But it makes it clear that in 1988 and 1982, he had been involved with sex crimes with children. He got the Order of Australia, the greatest honour that an Australian can get, for services to youth as a convicted pedophile. And I'm only digging this up going backward. I started with my memory first, right? Yep. And this is all the stuff on the periphery, which is open source intelligence. It's incredible. So let's find the best article on Adrian Cooper. Give me a sec. I'll just Google it again right now. I'll do it live. Adrian Cooper. Okay. Yeah, Google doesn't like me. Okay, Adrian Cooper, Sydney Grammar. The mainstream news, Sydney Grammar. And let's find any one of this Courier article might work. Okay. Okay, and do they want me to pay? They want me to pay. I'll find another link which works. Where is it? Just give me a sec. The mainstream news is, I know how to do it. I can open it in a private browsing window to get to read the article. So there we go. Copy link, new incognito window. There we go. Let's read the article now.
Well done.
Okay, so make it the font nice and big, because this article is from the mainstream news. Okay, and we're going to read this because this is from the mainstream news and it's gospel. Who would like to read it? Would you like me to, or Jim, would you like to read it?
Oh, I'm going to defer to you.
Okay. A retired master of Sydney Grammar who masturbated while watching young boys in a shower in Warrnambool over the Christmas holidays has been being placed on an 18-month community corrections order, no jail.
Oh my God.
Adrian Cooper, 76, of Queen's Park, the gay district, Darlinghurst, this week pleaded guilty to one count of committing an indecent act with a child under the age of 16 and, masturbating in front of kids in a toilet block, okay? The community, the order, he says he doesn't go to jail, he just gets rehabilitated as a 76-year-old pedophile who avoids jail. He was also placed on the sex offenders register for life. Cooper agreed with the order and he may be transferred to New South Wales instead of facing imminent imprisonment. So he never went to jail. The retired teacher has prior court appearances in 1982 for the willful and obscene exposure, as in showing an erect penis, in front of 3 children at Randwick, and in 1998 for, sticking mirrors under toilet blocks, okay? Cooper was awarded a Medal of the Order of Australia in 1992 as in recognition of service of youth. The defense counsel, Michael Turner, probably of Turman Freena lawyers, I hope not, I have to look him up. It's the same law firm I was talking to go against this son of a bitch, as the first law firm I talked to in August last year. And they said I was too homophobic to deserve justice because you've got to love the gays who rape you. We don't work with homophobes, they said. Okay, so Cooper played games of rugby and was a member of the choir, going for the choir boys. And get this, in the early 1990s, Cooper was involved with 3. This article's wrong. 3 bushwalking parties in the space of a week. Okay, 2 in the space of a week, which had to be rescued. We're going to come back to this in more detail. He was also involved with the National Parks Association, taking boys bushwalking after he retired every weekend. You will see photos. Okay, so this talks about the sex assault, masturbated in front of boys. Okay, he got caught and busted by the police. Here's the important part. Cooper admitted to police he was sexually attracted to young boys. As a gay man, he is attracted to young boys. Yeah. Okay, he's likely to reoffend again.
Yeah.
But he was still not given jail because we don't jail pedophiles in Australia. and he had a massive negative impact of one of the, now make that 2, count me as another victim. But I contact senior police on LinkedIn, and I talk about the pedophile being best friends with this ASIO officer, and they block me because New South Wales Police, I mean, you've got senior detectives I contact on LinkedIn, they say, if our friends approved of your rape, I don't want to talk to you, block. Because that's how the New South Wales Police break the Police Act. You know, if they don't want to take the first report, I've sent them emails, they don't respond. The police, this case is not only against Sydney Grammar, it's against the police for allowing deliberately the pedophile in my school. The New South Wales Police Force had a special relationship. There was a royal commission into New South Wales police and pedophiles ran by pedophile Justice James Woods, who you can see his victim statement on tinyurl.com/DikeCop post number 3. And in that inquiry, he said, we can't investigate the judiciary that goes to Robert Dolly Dunn, a gay Catholic priest boy brothel, and Christopher Public, leader of the gay lobby, who wrote the book on gay marriage, as I've exposed in my previous videos, was saying it's a homophobic witch hunt to go after all the gay men who went to the boy brothel. We can't destroy their life because gay rights is inclusive of boy brothels.
And yeah, let me hold you.
And that all rehashing. Anyway, so here we go. So so we talked about the now let's go into the next part.
Well, before you do, Luke, Angie has a question, so let her intervene. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jim. Luke is so passionate that and I'm so honoured because I've only known him about 6 weeks, and he had been warned off talking to me for about a year. But when we connected as fellow survivors and we got rid of all the trolling rubbish, I recognise a lot of survivors, I don't call it mental illness, I call it mental injuries from being traumatised and having your brain pathways messed with in the formative years. There was a guy in America called Dr. Paul Hegstrom, who was a brain neuroscientist, genius guy. And he was able to prove, you know, with tests that would cost the man in the street thousands, but he was able to prove that the brain pathways can be diverted by trauma during the formative years. And so I love people like Luke, people that are brave, sometimes reckless, sometimes so passionate they won't stop talking, because I know that they're trying to say, this is what happened. And I just want to draw a parallel to the UK, where they had things like, we had an ex-Prime Minister, Sir Edward Heath, who loved sailing, and he had a series of yachts called the Morning Cloud. And I spoke with ex-military people who told me jokes in the military, well known, where you know, they'd make a joke about, oh, the Prime Minister fell overboard, and he said, send me a buoy, and he said, this is no time for joking, I'm drowning here. That they had jokes in the army and the secret services because they knew that this Prime Minister was abusing boys, and if they were going to be too troublesome, like myself or Luke, they could accidentally fall overboard. We also had the Asimov Trust, where it would be, you would approach vulnerable children in children's homes, or single parent children, or traumatized children, and you'd say, oh, I really want to help. We've got a charitable foundation. We'd like to teach your children to sail, or we'd like to teach your children photography, or we'd like to take them on adventure outings once a month for a weekend. And the poor, vulnerable, you know, single parent says, oh, thank you, that would be lovely. My boy would love that. And it's a complete setup. And I know that the Scouts of America were utterly, I don't know if they were even disbanded. It breaks my heart that paedophiles.
They fractured because of allowing gay men in, and the first organisation in it.
About gays, I've got to get this through to you, Luke. It's not just about gays. We're talking about paedophiles, right? And I know there's a big blurred line, right, between gay men and paedophiles, but let's keep focused on paedophiles. It's the same in the Scout movement in America. It's like somebody comes to a vulnerable parent and says, would you like your boy to go on an adventure once a month for a weekend? you know, and you say, of course I would. My boy would love that, or my girl would love that. And like, as a society, we have allowed these people to strategically infiltrate every area where children are, and now they can go to schools and say to 7-year-olds, would you like to learn what anal sex is, or do you think you're a boy, or do you think you're a girl, would you like to wear a dress to school, or you know, it's gone crazy.
Yes.
We've got that OTO guy, Lucian Greaves, right? We've got him saying he goes to Texas to try and ban the heartbeat law, and he says abortion is a ritual, sacred ritual to us. So therefore, on blasphemy laws or religious discrimination grounds, we challenge the heartbeat law because it's a ritual for us. Abortion is a ritual. And then you have the other thing that first made me tune into you, Luke, was because Australia authorized rabbis to suction baby penises at 8 days old in the name
That's
of
Germany. That's the Rabbinical Council of Germany.
All right. Well, wherever it was, they said, oh, this is okay if you're a rabbi and you're Orthodox Jewish. Yes, the rabbis can suck the baby's penises and give them herpes and traumatize them or whatever, or cut their foreskin off.
I've got the autopsy photos.
Yeah. So now the Luciferians can say, oh, well, then we want our right to have children in black mass orgies because you've just told the Jewish, Hasidic Jewish community.
Slippery slope.
Chabad Lubavitch, you've just told them they can suction babies' penises at 8 days old. So we claim our right. It's lawfare, and it's like a cancer on society, and they are coming for our children.
Now, as you've been talking, I've been giving the people to scroll down and read my cover letter to the Russians saying, look, I don't want to be a prima donna. You might find this information useful about an Australian Prime Minister's links to a pedophile and a scandal and what have you. That's me sending it to a police officer in the district where Adrian Cooper lives, I believe before he died. And then here is the email to all the feds saying, please clear the ASIO pedo feds out of Canberra. And I name, the main intelligence scum, namely David Bottrell and Andrew Locke, who are confirmed. I'd say 90% sure that David Bottrell's plan to immigration is just a cover. Catherine Burns, who made me a refugee, Jim Fetzer and I talked about many years ago. The head of New South Wales Police Counterterrorism just doesn't go to immigration. She goes to ASIO. Okay, we all know that.
Immigration is run by Serco, which is Nicholas Soames, the grandson of Winston Churchill, and Prince William.
Well, the lawyer for the OTO in the latest 2022 Queen's Birthday Awards, Ian Freckleton QC, he just got Queen's Birthday honours as a lawyer, and he's famous for ordering children against their will through the courts to get electric shock therapy and working for the first time I called him up, he goes, you're at a Telstra payphone, you called me last week, I'm going to put charges on you. It's like, this is my first call, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? So the guy is a real shifty, dirty person. The High Court has confirmed he's arranged a kidnap of Vivienne Legg and Dyson Devine, who never had a day in court, who was sent directly to jail. He's running all the refugee children as the High Court judge of Nauru, where all the Queen Victorian Bar Society goes, yay, we made our own legal framework. We've got our High Court confirmed human rights abuser, kidnapper, who loves shocking children, to set up the whole framework for the refugees in Nauru. I go into the Zoom with all the people who protest every week to close the refugee centre in Nauru, all the lefties, and they say, you're homophobic to be against the world's first gay rights organisation. It has a doctrine of blood drinking, child Gnostic, 2 real children, not adult stand-ins in the Gnostic Catholic Mass sex magic ritual, and their most holy book says sacrifice a child after a cattle. That's homophobic to be against child killing.
I was at a Catholic Mass. I went to rehab in Ireland. I admit that I struggle with addiction issues. and it happened to be a Jesuit rehab run by nuns and Jesuit priests, and they had a huge funeral because one of them died. And this rehab is very closely connected to Hillary and Bill Clinton, and weird things happen when Hillary comes to Ireland with millions to pop in, you know, in a private jet. She flies to Ireland with multiple millions of dollars and pops it into Allied Irish Bank, right? And then she goes and visits this rehab that I happen to be in, and then somebody dies in a helicopter over Kildare, and then there's a photo op of Hillary outside a Catholic orphanage holding a child of about 7 with red shoes on. But in this rehab that I was in for 3 months, in Mass, we were allowed to say open prayers. And I dared, God, I think he's happy with me. I dared to say, I pray against satanic ritual abuse, and I pray for every child entrapped in that, including Elisa and Gabriel. And one of the Jesuit priests shot me a look that could, if it had a missile behind it, I would have dropped dead on the spot. He literally shot me a look like, what did you just say out loud? What did you just? I said, I pray against satanic ritual abuse wherever it's happening. And I pray for the children that are trapped in that. And I named them in a mass with like 500 people, you know. And this Jesuit priest just looked at me, and if looks could kill, I wouldn't be here. Yeah. So look, I want us to get to the bottom line.
Can we go through my most powerful email to Australian former Prime Minister? You've read the start of it, but you haven't seen the exhibits at the end, which paint a very scary picture that shows you, if you're friends with ASIO, being a convicted pedophile is not going to stop you being in a school. My rape as a child was blessed by the special gay police or these homosexual bastards. And the special gay police in Australia was founded by Dr. Gregory John Tillett, who was in the Ordo Templi Orientis, who did his PhD in New South Wales Police, covering up satanic ritual abuse. Go to the last page of tinyurl.com/stop gay public sex for the sources. Okay. He was the head of the biggest gay charity, and he was involved with making all the laws that homosexuals must not be disrespected. That has since been hijacked to say homosexual pedophiles who rape children must not be disrespected in all the cases.
The point when Jim stopped you, that was the point I just wanted to re-highlight, was then when Philip Schofield, who had a relationship with a 10-year-old, who he eventually introduced into television, and then this young boy was going to expose Philip Schofield for having sex with him. But when Philip Schofield, before he was outed by that boy, turned into a teenager who threatened to expose him, and Philip Schofield got the courage to say to David Cameron, Prime Minister of England, here's a list of alleged paedophiles currently serving in your parliament. And David Cameron, in response to that allegation about paedophiles, said, let's not make this a gay witch hunt. So,
and that's exactly what the head of the gay lobby in Australia said out for brothels, exactly the same phrase.
All right, I defer to you. Go on.
So let's read this incredible email. Do you want to read it, Angie, or does Jim want to read it? And then look at the exhibits at the end. That you haven't seen it yet, but it's incredible.
I'm just very conscious of Jim being so gracious with your time. I'm gonna just to keep things personal, Jim. Jim, you're not allowed to ask a lady her age, but Jim, how old are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. And I support Lou's efforts to expose all this.
What age are you? What age are you? Are you? I'm 64. What age are you, Lou? Jim?
81.
Wow. Bravo. And I'll just tell you this before I'm going to give the floor to Luke. My father's 95. He's going to be 96 this year. And even though he participated in horrendous type project paperclip stuff in the Royal Air Force, I am fighting for the right to visit my father in his 95th year. So I just salute you. I don't know your work very deeply, but I salute you for it, Jim. And 81, here you are on a Zoom with myself and Luke. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Angie.
We
Yes,
salute
and
you.
Luke has his most powerful message yet to deliver. Proceed.
Okay, I just
Yes.
skip it.
Here it is. Here it is. I have to
We're
take
good.
it back over now, Angie. You've
Yeah,
gone a bit off topic now.
all right.
This is my first email to Australia's former Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, a fellow Sydney Grammar old boy. Okay. So subject, dear fellow old boy, Adrian Cooper, Sydney Grammar abused me at 1993 Endeavour Club trip to a canyon west of Nowra. And now he's in your unauthorized biography bragging about doing the same or similar to you. This is a pedo scandal involving a prime minister.
Yep.
Okay. Now, Malcolm, and everything in this is true. I was talking in recorded phone conversations to lawyers all last week regarding the circumstances of myself being an intoxicated 12-year-old who had my fair share of 2 bottles of port. My dad told me it's like 30-something% alcohol and sweet, perfect drug to give, give it. He was giving alcohol. This convicted pedophile was giving me alcohol, okay? And possibly a date rape drug. The first time he tried to push it on me because I had blisters all over my feet after walking north up a canyon, or like a mostly dry riverbed, west of Nowra in the direction northwards from memory. I mean, this is going back to 93. I was a 12-year-old boy. And my army cadet boots were not fit for outdoors use. They're more for sort of for parade grounds. So I had to take them off and I fell behind and my whole feet were covered with blisters. So I was in a little bit of pain, but I refused to take it, right? That was the first strange thing. It is, I don't want this pill's too big. It doesn't look like a headache tablet. I don't want it. And that was the memory that working with the case in Queensland also involving the use of date rape drugs being withheld from a jury for gay pride in QCAT 2024. That was the catalyst that made it all come back to me. So, he got us drunk and around the campfire, on, at least 2 bottles of port. I don't know if I relented and took the pill in the end, but maybe I did. And then I protested against him demanding me, not all the other students. The other students got to go in a big tent, a really big one that was brought in on the car. Those big camping tents that you put in the back of the car, not the ones you carry. And he wanted me to go in a little 1 or 2 man green tent with him. And I protested and I refused. And I said, I don't want to, I refuse, No. And eventually being drunk is like, bugger, I need to go to sleep. I relented. I think I may have even protest and try to sleep outside. So I wake up and I think he was either applying lube or I had already been raped. And there was a sharp pain, the whole thing. When I tried to force my way out of the tent very quickly, I knocked the tent down. And I was talking about that all last week in recorded interviews with lawyers. And the lawyers didn't want to help me because I said, why are you wearing Wear It Purple uniform? Don't you know that's a gay charity that's formally asking in the UN to legalize sex with children? How can you be a lawyer and campaign to legalize sex with affiliate yourself with an organization that openly wants to make 10-year-old child sex legal? That was Amanda Doe at Murray's Blackburn Lawyers, a real piece of work. And she even faked the call was technical problems halfway through a 1-hour appointment. But guess who was recording the call? Not me, Microsoft's data center. And I think a law firm generally has a pretty good internet connection. So the only plausible theory is both of her ear connections on her headset failed at the exact same time. And because it remained plugged in because her microphone was still working, right? Or she deliberately faked technical problems and she didn't want to give me a reason why the case couldn't proceed forwards for gay pride. I mean, that's the level of bias. I'm going to lodge a professional standards complaint against her, but we'll go back to, I've got the audio, the whole thing. Every interaction with them was recorded because I talked to my first lawyer about the case, was also a militant home, a gay activist lawyer, Anna Lambrides at Turner Freeman, about 6 months ago. I put it on the back burner. I wasn't really, like, some pedophile raped me ages ago. I'll get around to getting justice eventually. I'll finally find a lawyer that will take the case. And then in the last 24 hours, I've gone, oh my God, this is bigger than just me. This is a police ASIO affiliated protected pedophile ring. So let's go into the evidence.
Right.
Well, I go to Malcolm, the former Prime Minister, in my first email to him. How does this email affect you? Then tonight, literally hours ago, I see your unauthorized biography for the first time, thanks to the very last link in a Google research result on Adrian Cooper. Then I got a copy of it thanks to the Russians I love so much. Adrian Cooper said you had a similar experience in a tent being knocked down whilst out in the bush alone with Adrian Cooper. At the time the book was published, Adrian Cooper was already a convicted pedophile and no one picked it up. You're going to see the screenshots in the book. And let's just go back to the Amazon tab. Amazon tab. Here we go. Amazon tab. Where's the wrong? There's so many tabs open about this. Anyway, we'll get back to it now. So we've got images in the bottom we can see from that book. But the book was published, Born to Rule, Silver Spoon, Sydney Grammar, Malcolm Turnbull, unauthorized biography made by an ABC reporter involved with background briefing, who interviewed my dad on ABC background briefing, Do the Walls Have Ears, regarding ASIO's operations in East Timor. Yes, my dad messes with the intelligence services too.
Your dad's a professor at university, right? He
was, but you know, if you're a professor at university, it goes against the normalization of child rape for gay pride. You know, you're going to have gay dads on Twitter going on his LinkedIn profiles, spamming images of him with his son, accusing him of being a pedophile. And gay dads in England runs a human trafficking business, selling children to gay men, and says, if you have AIDS, give us your AIDS semen, we'll make a gay pride AIDS baby. You know, don't
go too deep.
You won't go into him.
I have represented single mothers in Ireland who've had their children stolen from them for risk of future emotional harm and given to gay parents to.
Okay, we'll skip that because it's a bit personal to my lawyer. I shouldn't have put that in there.
Go ahead.
Now, so these links, but there are links between Adrian Cooper and the defence establishment in Australia. There is someone called Adrian.Cooper at defence.gov.au and Adrian Cooper was arrested in Victoria for the pedophilia at a camping ground linked to a motoring event, and he is in a classic cars club. So Adrian Cooper, since being a pedophile, got a Australian government defence email address, and that's where it reported to in this article here, which we saw before. Okay, so we'll just talk about the motor club. We saw it before, just to show that I'm not making this up. Private window. There we go. We just find the motor club reference. So when he goes down to, where's the motor club? He went to watch Speedway, okay?
Right.
So the Adrian Cooper involved with classic cars has a defence email address, but we've got a lot more than that. Don't you worry. We're going to get to it, okay? So that's just the mainstream news tie into the defence. And we can show his defence email address somewhere here. Okay. Now, Andrew Locke is ASIO. This guy climbed Mount Everest, being platformed by the ABC, like every piece of shit I investigate. He has dedicated both of his books, including one published after Adrian Cooper got convicted for pedophilia. Actually, all of his books, because he's been convicted pedophile since 82, but the most recent conviction too. This ASIO officer, Andrew Locke, dedicates all of his books to Adrian Cooper. And we can show you that in a second in the screenshots in the bottom and actually on my open tabs as well.
And just to clarify for the European and American audience, ASIO is the Australian equivalent of the CIA, right?
Yeah, that's the Intelligence Assets Division. We also have a wet work team called ASIS. We have the NSA, which is the Defence Signals Directorate, DSD.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So this ASIO has people who dedicate books to child. The key thing is Andrew Locke and Adrian Cooper have been in the Himalayan Society together since 1975. And when you hear about what happens next, this is where it gets incredibly scandalous. This is where it's like, oh my God, how did this happen? So I write to the former Prime Minister, now compare school defends trekking teacher article in the Sydney Morning Herald, Feb 93, which we'll read below, to the facts that he was a convicted pedophile since 1982, and not twice, but 3 times. I got that wrong. I didn't read the article fully. And 3 times parents were panicking about him lost with their kids in the bush.
Yeah.
And the New South Wales police never bothered to check he was a convicted pedophile. They had the database. They had the Central Names Index database in the New South Wales police. Any police officer, I mean, can you imagine 3 times kids are lost in the bush with a single gay man? All the parents are calling out saying, where the fuck's my kid? Where the hell's my kids? And the cops never checked he was a convicted pedophile when he...
Yeah. So,
and it's implausible.
The police
it's far-fetched.
The police are complicit.
Yeah, they are. They are complete. The New South Wales police will be personally liable for their mate being in my school raping me, because this is where it gets false.
How prolific is Freemasonry in Australia in the police?
Incredibly. OTO is the child abuse elective of the Freemasons. Okay. Now, David Bottrell, leader of the Treasurer of OTO Australia, is ASIO. There's even memes about it on my 153 news channel. We have proof that he's ASIO based on the court censoring him chatting to the judge about his overseas business in Turkey for the government, and immigration officers who allegedly run the partner visa section and don't do missions in Turkey and stuff. And it came out.
Wow, I've lost sound.
Case.
I'm losing connection. Luke, don't I want you to. We need to.
Can we get through this?
We need to wind up, but I need you to. Bottom line is.
You can go if you need to wind up.
No, it's not about me going. I want this to be succinct. And
well, I haven't shown the big evidence at the bottom of the email yet. Can we get to it?
Do it now, because I want this to be relevant internationally.
Well, it is.
All right, go for it.
This is Australian intelligence services, which are a law unto themselves.
Yep. We're getting interference.
Yeah.
Go for
Adrian,
it. Go for it.
Go for it. Getting interference.
Luke, did you freeze up?
Yeah.
Why don't I read?
Okay.
Luke, continue.
Okay. He later brags in a publication, I found it was a false flag done by his
police mates that gave him protection to be in my school to justify not transferring New South Wales Police Rescue to the fire brigade and defunding it. Then the mainstream media came to the rescue to hype them up with a TV drama before water rats. I have all this information. At some point, a police task force into Adrian Cooper may want to speak to you, or you could work together in a potential class action. It's from my research. There are numerous victims. I expose protected pedophilia in Australia. The Michael O'Brien case exposed in my Telegram, deep state pedo hunters, and bitchute.com/HOJURUKU channels. And it's the use of date rape drugs being withheld from the jury for gay pride and QCAT 2021 54 victim Chiron Reed St. Joseph's Nuji, of an ABC reporter's partner just before the gay marriage vote, was a key to, again, unlocking my own memories about my time in grammar I had recovered once before, called up Grammer about a recorded phone call and described the circumstances of the abuse without using Adrian Cooper's name.
Before he was convicted again.
And as good as my witness before I read Adrian Cooper's account of you being stuck in a tent with him and falling down just like me, I think he was bragging and taunting that he raped you. I could be wrong, but in my case, I know I am right. This is powerful stuff, Luke.
Now, this is a newspaper. This is a newspaper's article from 1995. Okay, 1993. Sorry, February 24th, 1993. Sydney Morning Herald, page 3. Okay, you can't take it back. It's authentic. Okay, so we'll go read the text from that. Okay. Would you want to read the Sydney Grammar? This is a story about a convicted pedophile. Then we're going to see after this that he brags about saving police rescue. Read this one.
The Sydney Morning Herald, Wednesday, February 24, 1993. A school defends a trekking teacher by Cole Allison. Sydney Grammar School defended one of its teachers yesterday after he triggered his third full-scale search in 12 months when he took pupils on a bushwalk in the Blue Mountains last week. The school, criticized yesterday for failing to notify Blue Mountains police in advance about bushwalking expeditions, announced it would liaise with police to prevent the repetition of costly search operations. While the school understands that such notification is not general practice, the school intends to hold discussion with police with a view to better communications. The headmaster, Dr. Ralph D. Townsend, said in a statement released late yesterday. Police were called out on Sunday after Mr. Adrian Cooper, 53, and his students did not return on time after what was to be a one-day bushwalk in the Arethusa Canyon. When the group of 11 boys, age 11 to 17, members of the school's Endeavor Club, failed to return that night, it sparked a 3-hour search the following morning involving 18 men, the Polar helicopter, and the police rescue squad. The group was not lost, but the official cost of the police was put conservatively at $4,362. The acting patrol commander of the Katoomba Police, Inspector Steve Ireland, was critical of Mr. Cooper, an experienced bushwalker and climber who has conducted 30 expeditions a year for the school in the past 33 years, for failing to fill out trip intent forms. Inspector Ireland told the Herald, I think he is negligent. He should be stopped from coming up here because apart from anything else, he's giving his school a bad name, and he's creating a major cause of concern for parents, many of whom rang us up Sunday night and Monday morning. He said when Mr. Cooper and the boys were found on Monday, he seemed a bit miffed. He wasn't concerned in the least. He said the boys had had a better adventure. It was a good experience for them, which seemed irresponsible to me. Last year, there were 330 incidents in the Blue Mountain, costing emergency services about $325,000. In 1991, 284 incidents, 16% fewer, costing $280,000. In 1990, there were 215, costing taxpayers $180,000. The figure for 89 was 196 at $225,000. Inspector Ireland said he was considering sending Sydney Grammar a bill for the search. A spokesman for Minister for Emergency Services, Mr. Merton, said the government had considered the issue of user pays for search and rescue, but there was no simple formula to determine negligence, and it was too difficult to implement. However, Minister for the Environment, Mr. Hatcher, said he'd asked his department to reassess ways to educate the bushwalking public into the use of trip intent forms. I'll just say, Luke, that obviously he knew about trip intent forms. He
deliberately didn't send his forms in to announce intent to take kids bushwalking because it was his protection was compartmentalized in the police. If junior officers started punching his name as per protocol into the Central Names Index database operating at that time, that's why he wasn't announcing his bushwalks to the authorities beforehand like he was meant to. Now, the last sentence is Dr. Townsend said a school authority
Authority had informed the police of the probable route out of the canyon as early as 9 a.m. on Monday. It appears that the police did not act on that advice, and that was, in fact, the route taken by the party, he said.
Yeah.
Now, look, let's look at that. I don't know what's wrong with my internet connection. It seems to be everything okay. This seems to be the spooks. Now, look at this. Since 1975, Andrew Locke, ASIO, and Cooper were in the Himalayan Society because they love climbing mountains, okay? They're in the same annual report, as you can see. You can see Adrian Cooper in this annual report, and then you can see Andrew Locke is their ambassador, okay? So that's their links going back. Now look at this. Andrew Locke ASIO dedicates his book. This book was published after Adrian Cooper was convicted for child abuse, okay? And he dedicates his book. Let's zoom in. I can't zoom in because it's an image, sorry. I have to read it to you. 3 specific individuals, all of them in Scouts, and I've got images of in Scouts, and other volunteer organisations who gave their time to inspire and develop the youth of Australia. Adrian Cooper, OAM, introduced me to the thrill of outdoor adventuring. So that's this ASIO operative who was in head of the New South Wales Police Counter-Terrorism Unit. And I've got dirt on the current head of the Counter-Terrorism Unit, or someone high up in it, Detective Sergeant Michael O'Keefe. If you want to see the story, it's online at tinyurl.com/cop. But this guy, here's where it gets interesting. Adrian, that's one of the 2 books that Andrew Locke wrote, praising a convicted pedophile, and he's now an ASIO. Now look at this. This is some more images. This is a story from a bushwalking magazine called Wild. And here is Adrian Cooper with being with the boys as early as 1958, okay, in Scouts, always being around the boys for 30 years. And he told the judge, I'm only attracted to young boys. That's all I want. And he was protected within the Scouts until now, basically, until he got busted in by Victorian police that accessed the same historical data. The Victorian police accessed the same data that was entered into the system in 1982 on an ancient IBM mainframe. It's been preserved in the set. Police still use the Central Names Index. Doing an FOI on myself, I even know my own CNI number. So that's him with Scouts since the 50s. Here we are. Here's a story on Adrian Cooper, one of a kind, in a Bushwalkers magazine, okay? He talks about canyoning. This was the type of trip where I was raped on, okay, at Sydney Grammar in 1993, after he took over a whole maths class to pitch it to me. Now, look at this. He talks about 6 o'clock news. While at Sydney Grammar, Adrian made the news on 3 occasions for the wrong reasons, okay? So this is a convicted pedophile out with a bunch of kids, and the cops don't know. Unbelievable. The police is, this is not negligence. This is willful protection. Also, if you know the history in Australia, the Woodrow Commission was into police protecting pedophiles. Robert Dolly Dunn got a P16 immunity to prosecution informant status as a child. He would sell drugs to give money to the police to have immunity to rape children. That's what the entire 1993 Woodrow Commission was about. This is another case down the same line.
I have to keep coming back to this. I've got a niece who's a policewoman, newly graduated in Ireland. I've got a family-related brother-in-law who was one of the top 5 police commissioners in Ireland. I've got some good police who have helped bring prosecutions, even for ritual abuse. And what I have to keep going back to, the only explanation I can find for the police, the FBI, the CIA, the intelligence services going so bad is either they're compromised up the kazoo or it's Freemasonry. I don't understand. I want to know. Like, I went to the police. Don't shut me down, Luke. I went to the police a week ago and said I want to visit my father, and he said, "Oh, it's a civil matter. Can't interfere. Like, what has happened? Where do normal people go other than into exile or avoiding death threats? Where do normal, good, upstanding citizens go to say there are paedophiles running riot? They're after the children. They're in the Scouts movement. They're in the schools. They're in the government. Where do we go to report this? And
what my belief is, Russia has to fly, send some containers of Liberator pistols into Australia and have an insurrection, because Russia went into Ukraine to denazify them. There needs to be a civil war to de-pedophile our Australian government. I'm extremist now. I've been radicalized by my own police-blessed child rape. And if they want to put an arrest warrant on me for making that statement, good luck. They can defend, they can explain how their pedophile state will never extradite me with the dirt I have. And let's keep going. So here he claims he saved the police rescue. A convicted pedophile running loose with kids in the bush saved the New South Wales Police Rescue Unit from defunding. The New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Board was also going to be defunded around 2003. And then there was talk about that in the newsletters, and along came Gary Burns to sue everyone for disrespecting pedophiles, to pork barrel $10 million in bogus legal fees to justify their existence. It's not the first time government departments run to pedophiles to justify their government funding. This is his admission of a false flag to save the police rescue squad, written by an interview with Adrian Cooper. The most productive outcome of the incident was the irresistible pressure on the New South Wales government to retain the police rescue squad and not give it to the fire brigade. Adrian adds that one of the sad things learned was poor bushcraft skills of some squad members and their lack of ability to read the ground and work out the locations on existing tracks. Adrian loves canyons, particularly those for abseils, blah, 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Luke, let's stop the screen share and have
10 seconds.
final reflections
10
on
seconds.
what you've done
Look
here
at this.
among the three of us.
I've got a whole bunch of tabs
Luke,
to go
you have
through.
an endless amount of evidence. So
Yeah,
this
let's
is
defer. Let's defer.
you got to understand, we are advising. Just take us
Yeah.
back to the three of us so we can reflect on what you've done here.
Please, Luke.
Okay, I'll do that. Just to see that
There's
his
always-
best friend
Luke.
is the highest ranking ASIO
Luke.
guy in Australia.
This is where
Luke, you're not
Okay.
listening to us, all right?
Okay, stop.
All right, good. Stop screen share. Thank you, Dr.
You drive us crazy, Luke, because you have so much evidence. You're so intent that you don't understand. You're
Okay.
overdoing it.
Amen.
Okay.
People can't observe. You've got a tremendous amount of direct evidence with Adrian
Yes.
Cooper and a huge amount of indirect evidence regarding other parties, and you're exposing a huge degree of corruption down under now.
Yeah.
The public needs to be able to absorb this. You're just
Okay.
like you're more than a waterfall. You're a flood. You're an absolute flood of evidence, and no one can absorb it all. You have to understand.
It's not just my story. It's
Luke,
open source
Luke,
intelligence.
Luke,
Breathe.
Luke,
It's a
for
tsunami.
Christ's sake, I'm telling you,
Yeah, come
you
on.
got a marketing problem because you're
Yeah.
going way overboard in the detail with which you're presenting. Now, I want Angie to give us her reflections on this, and if she disagrees with me, I'll be glad to hear it. But I have been listening to you for a long time, years now, and I'm just saying, you have to understand there's got to be a way of packaging your information to make it accessible to the public, and you have no way to do that. You're incapable of doing that. So we are here to aid and abet you in presenting your case to the public.
Bravo.
Angie.
Bravo.
Angie.
I'm so delighted. I'm humbled because, like I said, I only met Luke 6 weeks ago, and he's a loose cannon, and he doesn't have a stop button. And I've said to him, it doesn't matter how much truth we present, if we lose the listening public, we're just talking to the ocean. We're just talking to the mountains. It's not going anywhere. So it's absolutely got to be. I do a show with Luke once a week, and and I'm honoured to meet you, Jim. I'm honoured to meet you, and we have to take it in. I don't want to sound like a 17th letter Trumpster, but we have to take it in bite-sized pieces. We
Okay.
can't lose the list. This is traumatic for people to hear. And
for
if,
me too.
yeah,
But I just wanted to show the Prime Minister's book where Adrian Cooper is bragging about doing the former Australian Prime Minister.
Look, you don't have to do that. You have done enough. You don't understand.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, you won't accept yes for an answer, okay? You have done brilliant work in exposing corruption at the highest levels of the government here. Let people absorb what you said and appreciate and fathom its significance. We applaud you. We support you. We believe you. We believe in you. Just take our word for it about how this has to be packaged to be presented to the public. That's all we ask. That's all we ask. And I add with further note of commendation and your courage and integrity in coming out with the fact that you yourself have been subjected to sexual abuse by the very prominent figure you are exposing here so ably.
He's no longer prominent. He's convicted, but I mean, can I just please show the extract of the book involving the former Australian Prime Minister, so no one thinks I'm doing clickbait?
No, nobody thinks you're clickbaiting. Nobody thinks you're lying. You need to take a breath and then go spend some time with your family. And I need to just thank Dr. Jim Fetzer and Luke McKee. And I need to say, watch this space, and we will continue the conversation. But it's like, then this is my faith in God, right, Luke? You are heard, you are believed. For me, we need a miracle. We need a miracle. We need a miracle with Russia, Ukraine. We need a miracle with exposing corrupt politicians. We need a miracle with exposing satanic cults. But let it go. At some point, you have to say, okay, God, you take over. Jesus, take the wheel.
Angela, if this is all too much for you, you guys can leave, but don't end the meeting. I'll go on after you leave and show the evidence.
Luke, don't be insulting.
Oh, sorry.
We are on your side. You got to understand. We're talking about how you present all of this to the public. You are overwhelming everyone, overwhelming them. And that's because you have a vast amount of information. We're talking about how you present it. Angie, it's been a joy joining with you today.
Thank you.
And Luke will, at some point, begin to appreciate why we're insistent that we not continue with an endless flood. It's like water coming out of a fire hose. You can't drink it. It's simply overwhelming. So we're doing our best.
It is incredible. It is incredible that police let known pedophiles into schools, and convicted pedophiles, and the pedophile is bragging about being in a tent with the former Australian Prime Minister. In the same year, he gets convicted in a published biography, Born to Rule, Malcolm Turnbull, the ABC journalist or author did the interview with him and actually had his name in the book after he was in the papers again the same year for abusing children.
Look, we got it. Here's the thing.
That's a great way to conclude. A great way to conclude. Angie, I can't thank you enough for joining today.
I'm so grateful. And if you,
Luke McKee is a hero in exposing the corruption of the deep state globally, actually, not just down under. This has widespread ramifications.
Okay. So, look, I promise to keep in touch with you, Luke. I'd be honored anytime you can join us again, Jim. And I think we did great work today. And it's an unfolding story. That's it, Luke. If you need to vent more and make a video yourself of the evidence you didn't get to present, put it in the comments.
Oh, you can just leave it, but just not end meeting, and I'll keep the recording going.
I'm ending
Luke, I don't accept that, Luke.
No.
That's right.
I'm ending.
Angie's got the right.
Yeah. Did you get scared when you see this
let's
involves intelligence and prime ministers?
Hang on, Luke, and we'll talk a few more minutes after we conclude the recording. Okay, Angie, thank you.
Thank you. God bless, and thank you.